ladies and gentlemen, it's Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG radio show. Yo, these guests that I got on the show are just continuously building. But before I introduce my guest on the show, I got to run through the bio. So she is the founder and CEO of AbundantPhilly, a land stewardship and education firm with a mission to help organizations and individuals build their capacity to grow a more abundant life. As a real estate investor, urban gardening educator, and business development consultant, she has dedicated her life's work to finding solutions to our community's largest needs: financial planning, food, and affordable housing. She has spent over a decade creating successful social impact programs and leading strategic business planning for nonprofits, which include restructuring business and finance operations for Philadelphia's oldest urban farm, and most recently expanding the home ownership and home repair programs to triple the families served annually for the Philadelphia branch of Habitat for Humanity in 2 years. She now contracts with institutions like the Tiger Woods Foundation and Philadelphia Horticultural Society as an urban park developer and gardening educator, and works with Pew Foundation as a professional coach for leaders looking to bring innovative, equitable change to their organizations. Prior to moving to Philly, she earned her BA in psychology with honors from Stanford University and earned a master's degree in social psychology and social policy from Princeton University under a fellowship with the National Science Foundation. In between her bachelor's and master's degrees, she worked as a research assistant at the University of California, Berkeley, and as a project manager for the World Bank, where she conducted research on the best practices for training entrepreneurs looking to build businesses with a social impact in Uganda and the United States. She has become an incidental real estate investor since 2006 when she inherited property in another state, but has since she's found her stride as a purpose-driven entrepreneur, educator, and affordable housing provider, bringing new life to distressed small apartment buildings and neglected green spaces here in the city of Philadelphia. Every month, she co-leads a mastermind group for women in real estate called the Philadelphia Investor Community. She considers herself to be a principal land steward, concentrating on growing both the affordable housing space and urban green space development here in Philadelphia. She documents her journey growing her real estate portfolio and building parks and gardens on her blog at www.abundantphilly.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I have with me on the show today, it's history right now, Kyonne Isaac. Kyonne, thank you so much. I want to just read your bio again because I know when people are listening, they're going to be like, wait, she did all that plus what? Plus what? So before we get started, thank you again for coming on the show. Much gratitude having you on here. Tell me your story. You are you're out at Stanford University, focusing on your bachelor's in psychology, then going to Princeton, social policy, and then, building a big urban farm in Philadelphia, which is historical in its own sense. What was your passion? Tell me your story and what things can we look forward to? So definitely start off with your story if you can, please.
Oh, thank you. Well, first I have to say it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I have seen your channel and you've had quite a few really inspired Philadelphians here on the show. So thank you for including me. And so I like to think that what stitches me all together is the idea of helping people help themselves and build their own capacity. And I've found a love for that in both my research work, my social impact evaluation work, and also in my land stewardship, growing parks and gardens and affordable housing here in Philly. But before then, to back it up, I was born and raised in Florida. And I was actually born to two parents that also had growing in their backgrounds. My dad grew up on a cattle farm in rural Alabama. My mother, her family, before moving to New York, had a garden and farm in Jamaica where they were. So incidentally, and then we grew bananas, mangoes, citrus, sugarcane, all the things in our backyards in Florida. So unbeknownst to me, I was kind of just plugged into growing food right in your backyard from a really early age. And I also come from and I'm very proud of it, come from a line of women real estate investors on my mother's side. So my managing company for my apartments is KYE, and that stands for, it's not just a shortening of my name, but it stands for the 3 generation of women real estate investors that I hail from. So me, Kyonne, my mother, Yvonne, and my grandmother, Emily. So I got to see the power of what real estate can do for women, for Black women, and have, yeah, it would allow my grandparents to retire in Florida around their family, even though my grandfather was a humble tailor in New York. Um, and and I love spreading the joy, the good news, I like to say, of gardening and real estate all around. So I went to California for grad school or for undergrad, stayed out there for a while, loved it, but wanted to come back to the East Coast where my family was. And then once I did that, after graduating with my master's, I was looking for a social evaluation, applied research kind of job. Ended up getting a part-time job at a garden center that was run by this nonprofit farm, because I knew plants, I knew growing things, and I loved talking to plant people. Learned a lot from our customers and from the other staff members about how to grow things here in Pennsylvania, how different that was from where I was coming from in California and Florida, and just kind of fell in love with it. And it turned into a 5-year love affair, where I ended up running operations and the finances for that farm. So after that, I did pivot a little bit and ran the programming for Habitat for Humanity, their home ownership and home repair programs. My dad is a contractor, so being on construction sites was also a big part of our lives. We
Okay.
weren't doing like an activity; we were on the construction site helping dad do something with his firm. So, building houses, the power of owning your own house, at least that initial one, and then maybe moving on to other investments. I'm very proud to have been able to provide that to 27 families on the home ownership side, and then to serve over 200 families on our home repair side while I was there. And really, it just kind of led me to wanting to mesh those two loves together with my firm, AbundantPhilly. So I work both with folks looking to grow their own food, flowers, and medicines with my firm. So I design, I can help build, or otherwise coach and consult people and organizations who are building their green spaces. And then on the other side of things, of course, I do run a mastermind for women investors looking to build out their own financial freedom through real estate. So I think of it as land stewardship. The land is our power historically, and I want more people to be involved in it, really.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just clapping for you. And if I could send virtual flowers to you, definitely would. You know, you've made that impact continuously, and it's generational impact, you know, Kyonne. It's not even so much as like, hey, I helped this person or help that one person. You really are creating that generational impact where somebody's going to look back and say, oh, Kyonne Isaac was the one who helped me. You briefly touched on the investor community. Can you explain that a little bit further, and who can be a part of it? I, of course, hear the keywords investor, but want to know as far as who is it open to and how somebody can get involved.
Absolutely. So every third Wednesday, right here in Philadelphia, we hold an in-person meetup for the Invest Her community. It's a community of primarily women investors. Men are not excluded from coming to our meetups. We just ask them to kind of take a back seat. And if they
I'm saying
can't,
it for all the fellas out there, just shut up, y'all. If we get invited, stay in the back, be quiet, don't say nothing. Just nod and keep moving. No, but go ahead, continue.
absolutely, absolutely. We welcome you to participate. Even better if you can bring a woman in your life to come, a sister, a friend, a wife, that kind of thing. And we do a mixture. So I will say that the Invest Her community was not my brainchild, although I love it a lot. Liz and Andressa are two women real estate investors here in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And they actually started this meetup right here in Philadelphia, but they are actually nationwide and worldwide. So there's over 50 meetups of investors in all across the country and in Canada and I believe Mexico now too. So they're in a lot of major cities, even small rural areas. And so what we do here in Philadelphia is we do a mixture of networking events where we believe that you need to build community. You cannot do this by yourself, no matter how experienced you are. Building a real estate portfolio or wholesaling business or flipping business, it takes a team. So we like to connect people with our networking events. And then we otherwise like to bring on professionals, experts, specialists who have been in the game and doing it and giving us kind of their best tips and practices. So in fact, for our June meetup that's coming up, we're going to be having Terry Brown. She owns a construction firm. built to last. She's a general contractor herself, and she's going to be teaching us all the tips and tricks for how to get the best out of your relationship with your contractor without being taken advantage of. So yeah.
Lovely, lovely. And with the group and you being a part of it, what are some of the myths that you're pretty much able to put away to the side that you do come across? Because real estate can be fun and it also can have a bunch of horror stories behind it. But what are maybe a couple of myths that you come across, especially from those first coming in and then, maybe months down the line, they're owning a portfolio, if you will?
Absolutely. One of the big myths I like to dispel is that it's not just this, no matter how you get into real estate, even if you are just buying into somebody else's fund and they're the ones doing the real estate, buying and purchasing and rehabbing, it's not a passive activity. So we like to say it's a passive investment. And this might just be my business consultant side coming out, but it's starting a business. And so you have to treat it as one. You have to do your vetting. I think you should spend way more time educating yourself about real estate than actually jumping in at first, because it is what we call a capital intensive enterprise. You need money in order to start it up, and not little money, especially not here in Philadelphia anymore. So before you kind of put that capital out there, whether it's yours or someone else's that you're borrowing, it's really important that you educate yourself on all the different strategies that can be involved, and also have a good sense of what your vision is for it. So folks in our group use real estate for different things. For some people, it's a regular paycheck, it's a job and a very lucrative one for them. For other folks, more like me, it's a longer term investment and it's a part of my retirement plan. So that necessitates a different way that we're going to interact with real estate, the different choices we're going to make, maybe how I, borrow money if I do, who I partner with, what kinds of assets I acquire. So, and then even what markets I look into. One of our upcoming speakers, I hope to speak about investing internationally. So, getting involved in that or getting involved with out-of-state investing. It doesn't have to be here in Philly. But I think thinking really clearly about what your vision and your goals are can lead you to having a good strategy. So that's one thing. And then the big thing is that it's not just a market, it's not just something that men do. So there's, I think, this idea that, the appraisers, the inspectors, the bankers, the contractors, that they're all these guys that are involved and women kind of have to edge their way in. We have over 1,600 members of our meetup,
Wow.
and I would say 90% of them are women. So there are women who are in the game here in Philly doing it big. So if you're a woman out there and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to get involved in this sausage fest, if you will, just know that there are lots and lots of women who are doing it and doing it really, really well. And we use different strategies. We have different strengths than men, but they're complementary and you can use them to your advantage. So those are two big ones. Make sure you have a vision and goal, know it's a business. And if you're a woman, don't be intimidated by these guys.
Thank you so much for that. Just to back up a little bit, especially for a newbie investor, thankfully, this podcast definitely reaches the hundreds and, it's sometimes thousands, but this may be the first time somebody, is getting into real estate and, just listening in on this episode. What advice would you give as far as when it comes to education? Because I know when I got started and I was hearing about wholesaling, I know I wasted, and I'll be clear about it, I wasted a year on wholesaling, getting involved, learning the ins and outs when it was pretty much more of a no, just go and take action. And your opinion and your expertise, how long should one, just educate themselves? And even more specifically, how many hours weekly should they be doing so during that education as well?
That's a great question. So I think it really can be about your comfort level. And when I say comfort level, I mean specifically like the values you have in and around money and where money kind of your relationship to it is right now. I'll admit I was an incidental landlord in 2006. So I inherited property and became a landlord like right away. And I did not have all my ducks in a row, you know? I didn't realize how expensive it was to hold on to an asset and have to maintain it over time. And I got myself into a little bit of financial trouble. So I wish I had taken more steps towards my own understanding of my finances and how to maximize them, and how to save the income that was coming in, a little bit better. So that was my journey. Whereas I think others who might be a little bit older in age and starting out, or might be a little bit more established, or have already like people in their corner who have already done it, they may not have to take as long as I did. So I spent about 2 years before I made my first investment here in Philly, just absorbing all that I could. I cannot. So I got my degree in real estate from YouTube University, 100%. Listening to
That's
knowledgeable
free,
people.
y'all. That means it was free.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Listening to podcast, like, the podcasts on YouTube. They weren't podcasts back then. They were just YouTube videos. Just, people explaining things. I've read some wonderful books. There's one called The Wealthy Gardener that I would recommend to everybody. It talks about gardening, but it really is about how this man built his financial freedom through real estate. I would recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door, some of those books that really talk about the mindset of an investor, first and foremost, rather than just the nuts and bolts, which you can get anywhere, including my own blog, where I talk about the nuts and bolts of investing. But the mindset of it and how you get into it, I would not skimp on really figuring that out. It is very different from just saying, I need money, let me get a job, which I think is how a lot of us grow up when we think about earning money. When you're doing an investment, you got to think about those returns, both the immediate ones and the ones long term. And that's not natural for a lot of us. They don't teach that in school, unfortunately. So I wouldn't skimp on it. It's really going to be about your comfort level. And you talked about like jumping right into like wholesaling was like this thing you started focusing in on.
Yeah.
I'd encourage newbies to be promiscuous with the with the topics of real estate at first. Don't niche yourself out with like one thing right away. Come to meetups. I'm not just saying that because I lead one. There's lots of others that are amazing here in Philly. If you can go in person and talk to real people who are doing this work, that can also give you a great insight and whether you have the stomach for it, the temperament for it. I know folks who don't have the time for it, right? But they still want to
Yeah.
get into real estate. And there's a way to do that by, lending your money out to others who are in the space and have a lot more time to buy and rehab and deal with tenants and things like that. So there's lots of ways to get into it. Don't niche yourself out at first and really get tight on your mindset about money and what it would be like to be an investor. That can, for some people, that takes 6 months. For me, it took 2 years. I would say also it is important to jump in. So don't spend 10 years. At that
We are
point,
definitely
it's too much.
definitely saying no, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely saying
Right, right. But if you have to take a couple years because maybe you want your first deal to be a house hack, which was mine here in Philly. So I bought an apartment building and lived in one of the apartments. I needed to get my credit right because, again, like I said, before I was not minding my money and minding my business the way that I should have. So it took me a couple of years to turn my credit around in a way to get a favorable rate in order to, find the right deal that fit what I could do. So I would say think closely. And if you need help, if you need advice, come to our meetups. I offer advice as a business consultant. There's lots and lots of others out there. If you know of an aunt in like Ohio who's, a landlord, ask her. Like I would say just start educating yourself. And when you feel like you have a strong goal in mind, you have that vision, jump in. Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you, Kyonne. I really appreciate that. I do want to back it up a little bit to actually the land stewardship. But before we do, where can actually folks find you at on social media and get connected with you?
Absolutely. I do have a Facebook group for Abundant Philly. That is kind of my shingle for all things land stewardship. So both my real estate investing as well as how I build my parks and gardens. I do consider myself, I have a Garden Pal program. So if you're someone who's interested in growing your own food, flowers, or medicines, you're either getting started, wanting to optimize your garden, or you're an organization with an asset that you'd like to turn into a green space, you can go to my website, www.abundantphilly.com. And there's a contact me link where you can kind of select and reach out to me there. And I'm also on Instagram, so I'll take your DM there as well. So yeah, so that's the best way to contact me, I think, is through either Instagram or my website. I also have a blog, lots of resources there, for anybody that's interested in either of those two things.
Thank you so much, Kyonne. Thank you for that. With the land stewardship, I know you had talked about, as far as your background, it was kind of surrounded. It's like, hey, I'm going to be doing nothing but land stewardship when I get older, because it's generational. What had you, continue on that journey? There's plenty of folks, who come from families where there's generational doctors, and of course, by the time they get to the grandkid, they're expecting them to be a doctor. What had you continue on the pathway of land stewardship?
Yeah. I had to make it my own, to be honest. So my grandparents, they ended up buying brownstones in Brooklyn back when they had to pay you to buy something in Brooklyn, like it was just like nobody wanted to live there. And they did it out of necessity, and it turned into an investment portfolio for them once they kind of evolved out of those spaces and their children grew up, so they didn't need that much space. They had six kids plus another Jamaican family they were kind of like helping to steward and take care of. So as that family evolved and grew, they didn't need those that way anymore, and they had the presence of mind to keep them, and to do other things with them. So that was their story. And then my mother, she actually was a little bit more of a speculator. So she loved vacant land, and so she bought up a lot of vacant land around South Florida, and would buy and sell and kind of be in that market. And that was her way of kind of being an investor, being tapped into her community, and earning a little bit of a side income for herself. You know, I liken it to wholesaling a little bit, like a little bit of a job, having to sell and buy and kind of stay in it. For
Right.
me, I'm a lot more of a affordable housing advocate. So working at Habitat for Humanity, I just have to be. It aligned with my values so much to work there. And now that I'm a landlord myself, I really believe in affordable housing. I believe everybody should have a decent and safe place to live. And so I'm a Section 8 landlord. It's guaranteed income from this agency that's backed by the federal government. It's a win-win. They get a really great inspected, clean house or apartment, and I get market level rent for that. So I really encourage folks to have that as an option, like something in your tool belt. And it's a long-term strategy for me. So my apartment buildings I'll be keeping, and actually also hoping to pass down to my nieces and nephews. So I've got four brothers myself. And so to your point about generations, that's really important to me, is to be able to pass something down.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Keon. And we skipped over the business consultant. You had mentioned that you do that as well. Can you tap into that a little bit more and explain that further?
Sure, sure. So it started out as something that like I just wanted to volunteer doing. So in between my undergrad and grad, I had the pleasure of working at a business school as a research scientist. And one of the things that our lab focused on was entrepreneurship. And so how do people kind of create businesses, especially ones that are from the outset looking to have a positive impact in the community, and researching kind of the tools and the skill sets that those successful entrepreneurs tended to have or otherwise acquire either through relationships or their own education. That was always so fascinating to me. So once I graduated my master's, I didn't pursue the evaluation part of it and becoming like an evaluator of those businesses, but I still wanted to help them. So I started volunteering with an organization called Clarify. They are financial services nonprofit. Anybody can go see them and get like help with your credit or your finances. And they also do like small business boot camps. So for like a truncated 6 weeks, they'll kind of help you work on your business instead of just working in your business, if that makes sense as an entrepreneur. So how do you optimize it instead of just being so consumed with the day to day? I ended up starting to volunteer with them and just kind of built a passion with working with entrepreneurs who might have a small team, but want to get there. They want to get to a place where their business is something they own and not just something that owns all of their time. And I've helped caterers, I've helped people owning car shops and auto shops, I've helped people running farms, I've helped people running education services. So I don't consider myself an expert in any one of those sectors, but what I am an expert on is being able to ask questions. I think that's like my research scientist background. So I think the best question leads to more questions. So I'm always trying to tap in and have my clients kind of think of the next step, the next step, the next step. If you have a position you want to take in your business or a place where you want to expand, well, let's take that thought process all the way. So after you've hired this person, what's going to be the outlay over the next 5 years, and how much do you expect to get in return for that investment in that person? And I'm saying person, not just their salary. So how could you invest in them so they stick around and stay with you? And for some of my older clients, ones that have had their business a long time, how do you think about succession planning? Maybe selling your business or going in partnership with someone younger so your business doesn't die with you. So I think those things are so important. And entrepreneurship, whether it is through like real estate or another sector, it is the way that we make millionaires in this country. Um, the Millionaire Next Door did a little survey of all these folks that he interviewed, like millionaires from across the country. About 60% of them owned stocks and other kinds of investments. 90% of them were in the real estate game. So owning land, owning a business is a way that our tax structure incentivizes you, and also just the way that you can live your life. It doesn't have to be a 9 to 5 kind of job. There's so much more out there when you start your own business. And so being able to help those folks kind of make it to the next level, it brings me a lot of joy. And so I do that both for not for-profit businesses. So I do bookkeeping, financial analysis kind of services on a monthly basis for people who own a for-profit business. And then I partner as a consultant with the Pew Fund. So the Pew, they work in collaboration with UPenn to bring nonprofit leaders who are looking to kind of build their programs. I'm a professional coach for those nonprofit leaders as well. And it's just something that fills my cup. I love talking to people about the weeds of their business, about what they can do to optimize it. And so I'm just trying to follow my passion right now. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So you said that you clone yourself 3 times during a weekly basis, and you utilize your clones for all the stuff that you're doing. Because I'm hearing land stewardship, real estate investing, um, business consulting, plus running these meetup groups, plus running the blog. My other question that just popped in my head: how do you prevent burnout? Because there's got to be the days where it's like, hey, oh my gosh, oh, today is Wednesday. I thought it was Friday. I thought it was Saturday. I didn't even realize the month we in. Oh, the year is 2024. I thought I was already in the future. So if you can for me, Kia, how do you prevent burnout, in order for you to continue going? You had mentioned your passion, but if you could deep dive further into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big believer. I like to help people, but you got to put your own mask on first before you can help anybody else. Otherwise, you do burn out very, very, very quickly. So self-care is a loaded word these days, so I won't even bother going there, but I will say,
It's a
um,
whole other podcast episode. I'm with you.
yeah, yeah. But I do take time for myself and I do make it a priority. And I like to say yes to as many things as I can, but I always try to set realistic expectations with my clients and with myself. So I can do a lot of things, I can't do everything. So just being able to prioritize. I'm like an organization, like I'm obsessed with it. So spreadsheets, calendars, they keep me going. If I need to, I will check in with that on an hourly basis just to make sure I know what I'm going to be doing next. And then a big, huge part of where I find my peace is in my faith. I'm a Christian. I'm not necessarily even evangelizing that everyone become one, but certainly find a place and space where your beliefs align with something bigger than yourself. And
Mm.
you'll be amazed at how much that can bring you some real peace and allow you to kind of take the steps forward. And I do things for a reason beyond myself. So I said before that a big part of what I want to do is leave something for my nieces and nephews. What I've observed, especially going to the elite institutions that I have, a lot of rich families have something in common, which is at some point they get a leg up. Someone who helps them out with that down payment, with this, with a company, with something. And that's kind of how it's not just an inheritance. It's like they really do get something tangible. So I want to be able to do that for my family as well. It's a big part of my own core mission. And I try to keep that in mind. I'm doing this for something beyond myself. Because when I just think about how much money I'm going to be making, or, kind of the next deal I got to put together, it can be really draining, just kind of being so self-focused. So understanding that there's a higher power I serve, that I'm trying to do this for the little ones that are in my family, and prioritizing myself fiercely, where I'm an introvert, so I recharge solo. So there are times when I won't see anybody for a day just to kind of recharge my batteries. If you're an extrovert, make building that community your priority. But also if you're an introvert too. I just had an amazing brunch with a bunch of women business owners, and it filled my cup in a way that I wasn't expecting. So take the time. Take the time. It's worth it. I would rather have a Saturday where I'm not necessarily working on any of my businesses and I'm just doing things for myself, because that means Sunday through next Saturday, I'm okay because I've taken that time for myself. Running, 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 running. You got to work smarter, not harder.
Oh my God, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think people don't look at the value of that. They're either forced that break because they got sick, or,
Yeah.
unfortunately, they've been put in a situation where they need to be hospitalized. God forbid anybody listening. I hope that doesn't happen to you. But the reflection piece, I think, is important with that self-care, where it's like, hey, this hour I'm focusing on myself. And after said hour, realizing like, wow, that hour was great. That hour was worthwhile, because some folks, they'll do the self-care, they'll join a yoga class, or they'll go to the gym, and they'll look at it as a defeat, because they're like, oh, I could have got A, B, and C done, or I could have got X, Y, and Z done, or I missed this appointment, or I missed this call, and not realizing the value that it's like, hey, you were able to take time for yourself. Not a lot of people get that opportunity. Now, once you've been refreshed, okay, hey, get out there. And like you said, that Sunday through the following Saturday, getting back into the schedule. So thank you for that. As we're on the topic, what piece of advice that held dear to your heart, over the years, that does keep you motivated and going?
Yeah. As someone who's kind of had different chapters in especially my professional career, science, and then it was farming, and, then business consulting, affordable housing development. Um, it can be easy to have a bit of imposter syndrome, to like enter a space and think I can make an impact, or, do something with it. But one thing that actually I was asked about, I forget the context. I want to say it was like a small group discussion, but it's always stuck out to me. And that's, what's your superpower?
Mm.
Everyone has a superpower, something that you do that is uniquely you, uniquely your own, and it's powerful. Figure out what your superpower is, and then you'll be unstoppable. There is nothing you can't do once you understand what your superpower is. So for me, I like to think my superpower is connecting and communicating. So, especially on a one-on-one basis, I'm talking to you, Daniel. I'm pretending like other people don't exist right now.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. No, no, no. I'm with you on that. As we're wrapping up here, is there any I want to know the future for you. You've made impact not only locally in Philadelphia, but across the nation, and across generations, for years to come. What can folks look out from the Kyonne Isaac? It's 2024 now. What are some of your goals that you're looking at in 2029 for yourself and even for your company?
Absolutely. Talking about putting myself first, I'm actually looking forward to doing a bit of traveling. I went to Southeast Asia back in 2017 and I hope to go back. So Singapore is on my list. And that's something I'm going to stop all that I'm doing and go and do that. So that's something just small bit, but just getting better at what it is that I'm doing and how I'm serving my clients. My Garden Pals program, where if you just want to talk to a real person and not just the internet about how to grow something, or if you're making the right kinds of choices in your garden or green space, that's kind of one program for my services that I'm really hoping to expand out and do more of. So for a very affordable price, $75, I'll talk to you, for an hour about what you need. And if you'd like that to be an ongoing relationship, that's something I'd be happy to do with you. And I have some really exciting park and garden projects that hopefully in the next 2 years really come to fruition and become pillars in the community. So in Tioga, I'll be building a park at 17th and West Tioga. It's a building that fell down, and the owner believes in the power of green spaces and community. So we'll be building a beautiful pollinator and habitat park there that has seating and programming for the community and is sustainable as well. So we're building into that project something where teenagers 12 to 19 can actually be garden stewards. And so they get paid to help keep the park clean, keep the park tidy, and hopefully learn a little bit of urban gardening as well. So that's one project that I'm lifting off. And then another one is with the Purple House Project. They are a temporary housing situation for women in transition. And they'd like to, we're working with them to build a sanctuary garden. So they've got a big, beautiful parcel behind their shelter house where, the women want to just have a refuge. And so not everybody necessarily is going to consider a garden to be a refuge, but I do think getting out there outside, however you can really be a refuge. So not all these women are going to be gardening or growing their own food necessarily, but I'm hoping the flowers, the beautiful setup with the furniture that we're putting together will be a really special thing for them. And I helped build a community garden at Lutheran Settlement House in Fishtown several years back. And so I'm hoping to do something a little different. That was a food garden. This one will be much more ornamental and maybe even have some teas that we can take harvest from the garden itself. But those are just two projects. And then more real estate. So I'm in acquisition mode. And so I'm looking to buy more apartment buildings and build my portfolio.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to it, and of course, looking to have you come back on the show to discuss more of your success. But Kyonne, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, sharing your gems, sharing what's going on, and also just sharing the impact that you've made in the city of Philadelphia. So thank you again for being a guest on the show.
It's been my pleasure. And Philly, I fell in love with you 2017, and I hope it's a long love affair. I just love this city.
Awesome. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the RNG Radio Show. You can find me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.